what makes a cryptocurrency valuable? What makes a blockchain valuable? Well, what makes them valuable is solving real-world problems. And Avalanche has some unique, interesting issues that they're working with. And so what I wanted to do is focus a little bit on what Avalanche is all about and what they are trying to accomplish, okay? So, welcome to the multiverse, that wonderful term that Facebook tried to steal and that seems to be more of a gaming universe than a real universe. So it seems to be, the Web3 multiverse is more of game sites where you can immerse yourself in games. And we're going to get to that here in a few moments. The thing is, this one is very, very fast. This network, the big key for this one is that they built a network that is incredibly fast, and it uses smart contracts like Ethereum and a lot of others. So you're kind of getting the idea that there's a lot of competitors trying to take Ethereum down. And part of the challenge that Ethereum had, and part of the reason they needed to go to the merge and eventually to sharding, is because their network had become slow. It had become very expensive, and it was difficult to build apps on them. So they need to now run after a lot of more nimble competitors that are in the market. Now, we just talked a little bit about Chainlink and the problems they're solving and the things that they're doing. Avalanche is approaching it from a little bit different side. And so they are incredibly fast. There is a video here that you can watch about it if you wanted to come back to avax.network. So what's possible? Building fast, low-cost, solidity-capable dApps, or distributed applications. Now, those distributed applications can be games. They can be distributed finance. They can be anything that you happen to imagine. Okay, it can scale to millions of validators with very little hardware because they have a proprietary consensus algorithm that allows them to very quickly validate the transactions and put them into the blockchain. You'll see more about that in a moment here. So if we come down here, here's where I wanted to end up, because what they did is here they wanted to highlight the fact that they've made a very extensible and very speedy blockchain. So they're comparing it to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Polkadot. I'm not quite sure why. Probably because Polkadot's their nearest competitor as far as speed. So transaction throughput, 7 transactions per second for Bitcoin. Pretty slow and pretty sluggish. Ethereum, 14 transactions per second. Once they have sharding, they're going to get up to a much higher number of transactions per second. We don't know exactly where they're going to end up, but Ethereum is addressing the slowness of their network. Polkadot is 1,500 transactions per second. But Avalanche contends that with subnets, they have an infinite amount of transactions per second. So here's the issue. Subnets, do they sound a lot like sharding? Yes, they do. It's the ability to split off, and the subnet then acts like a blockchain in and of itself, okay? So the next thing is transaction finality. It takes Bitcoin 60 minutes to finalize your transaction. 6 minutes on Ethereum, 60 seconds on Polkadot, less than 2 seconds on Avalanche. So you're getting the picture here. As far as energy efficiency, Bitcoin is not energy efficient. It, uses ASIC machines in a proof of work status. They burn up a lot of electricity in order to close blocks and finish things up. Is Ethereum very efficient? GPUs, maybe, but Ethereum, as they go into proof of stake, won't be using even GPUs, so they'll use a lot less electricity. Yes, Polkadot is very optimal. CPUs can run their proof of stake network. And then, of course, you've got CPU is optimal for Avalanche. So you can become a a validator with Avalanche and use your CPU. So number of validators, thousands of nodes for Avalanche, and you've got, 3 pools, it looks like, with greater than 51% of hash rate. Currently, there are 3 pools that run 51% of Bitcoin's network. That's concentrated pretty heavily into very small number of places. There's only 2 pools with Ethereum, and thankfully that's now being broken down into a proof of stake model, which will greatly disperse that and make it much more distributed. Polkadot relies on less than 200 nodes, where Avalanche literally can do thousands of nodes. Civil protection is a level of security, and that is illustrated by proof of work versus proof of stake. And the safety threshold is 51% with Bitcoin. In other words, if one pool gets 51% of the hash rate, they're in danger of that 51 taking over the network and stealing coin. Ethereum is the same 51%. Polkadot is only 33% have to take over, and they've got a security issue. Where Avalanche's proof of stake method, which is proprietary, like I said, can handle up to 80% in one hand and still be safe and secure. So the whole idea with Avalanche is simply that they are striving to be a very fast network, where I mentioned that Ethereum was going to work on competing with MasterCard and Visa. If you put a distributed finance app on the top of Avalanche and had it functioning properly to compete with Bitcoin, with Visa or MasterCard, it probably would do it quite handily. So let's look at the idea of the subnets. So when you want to develop an application on Avalanche, the first thing you do is create a subnet. Now let's look at a couple examples. Gaming, okay. I did say that gaming was one area that they could just divide it into a subnet and build up an application. I have investigated Kribata. I've not gone into DeFi kingdoms. So more games are launching soon. And for some reason, for their subnets, they're highlighting games. The idea that games tend to drive new technology. You get people hooked on games, and they can work out the problems with speed, with throughput, with graphics, and those types of things while developing a game and getting people hooked on getting people hooked on just playing. As we go down here, we do have some institutions that have put their blockchains on Avalanche. Using Avalanche's speed really is important. They've got some native know your customer functionality. That's a banking thing, so that banks know their customers, or distributed finance apps can know your customers. Got some native coding for that. That helps in that regard of developing those types of subnets. Financial applications will, become the foundation of global financial markets, and they align well with Avalanche. So there's a lot of institutional interest in Avalanche as well. And they have a whole bunch of other companies that are collaborating, because a lot of developers with a lot of ideas, and they tend to split up and want to do their own projects, but at the same time, they collaborate to develop the foundational coding to distribute and build on the applications that have to reside on top of them. So you find that a lot of the applications that are being built on top of it, their experts will also collaborate with the baseline code to make sure that it stays as robust as it can be. So you find a lot of collaboration with Ethereum and with Avalanche and with all the major blockchains out there.